in October, favorite time of the year.
There we go.
So Ben, remind me how much time I have. Just
Well, now you got like approximately 10 minutes, 10,
10
15,
minutes.
10
Okay,
minutes, 10 minutes.
perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you, Apprentice Worldwide, Hernan, Carrie, Ben, Prashant, and for all the work and speakers that went before me. You all covered so much, but I hope to share with you all, and really was inspired by the stories and just the openness to share your journey so far. So I'm Nicole LePetri. I am from New York, born and raised in New York. I'm currently in Washington, D.C., and I am taking advantage of the ability to work remotely. Normally, I do work in Midtown Manhattan, but as a result of COVID, we are working at home. So I am in DC, where I went to college not too long ago. So I am very excited to be here with all of you because the journey that you are all going through right now, the decisions that you're thinking about they didn't happen too long ago for me. So, and I get very excited to talk with students, young professionals around your age, and kind of bring I was you not that long ago perspective to it. Right now I work at Bank of America as a strategist. So I work with companies, and mostly I help create frameworks and provide direction to teams within Bank of America about how we can provide best value for clients, what the direction we want to go in, and what are our goals that we need to achieve in order to meet that larger vision. And I think that ties in really well with what I hope to talk a bit about in these next few minutes with you all is just how important goal setting is to actualizing, realizing your purpose and your dreams in life. And I think someone has I went to a pretty tough school, and I came from, let's say, a family with high expectations. I had high expectations myself. Sometimes goal setting can feel like this intimidating process. I know, again, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and but I want to share this energy that goal setting is truly your best friend as you go through finishing school, starting your career, and it will keep you on track. Because I think one of the things I underestimated when I left or when I entered the workforce is just how many opportunities there can be out as you start your career, as you meet various individuals. There's a million things you could do, which is really exciting. But at some point, you do there's not one right path for you, but there are paths that are better for you than others. And taking the time to set goals ensures that you stay on the best path for you over time. And I think both Joel and Andy mentioned this, and I thought it was great. Goal setting should be coming from you. It should come from you, how you feel, what your viewpoint of the world is. And that energy should come from you and be shared with others. It's really easy. Like I mentioned, I came from a family in an area that had just had very specific expectations for what people do with their lives, how to succeed, or how to live a life that is maybe traditionally the best. And it doesn't have to be like that. This is your time at this, as Joel mentions, this is the best time to be thinking about who you are, putting yourself into new experiences, and seeing what you can do and how you flourish. Or in some situations, you don't like something, or something didn't go as well, and just learning from each experience more about yourself. And so as you do that, I like to set goals sort of in 3 time horizons. The first being every day. So what is 20 minutes, something I can do every day that's going to help me achieve the longer term goal that I want. And then I set myself on that sort of everyday check-in, and it becomes a habit after 3 to 4 weeks, it becomes a habit. And then I check in every few months. And once you get to the every few months point, you're able to check, apologies, that's Washington, D.C. for you, with the car in the background. But every few months you check in. This is where you can become a little flexible and say what's working, what's not working in your goals. And then you have the longer term goal, which is what you're ultimately working for. And I think the question I used to get the most in college and in the beginning of my career was from adults that were looking to connect with me, but didn't know how. And they would always ask, so what do you want to do? Like, what do you really enjoy doing? And I used to hate that question because it made me feel like that question, it was a static sort of a thing that once I got out of school, I knew I was going to do forever. And that's absolutely not the case. I mean, you come out of school with a great idea of maybe who you are, but the learning curve really starts day one of your career. And as you go, and every day is a new day, and my long-term goals are always set on like 1 to 3 year max horizons, because especially in the beginning of your career, things change. You learn so much about yourself and things change pretty rapidly. So it's setting goals to keep yourself on track with being flexible enough. So that as you continue to learn about yourself, you can adjust them and you can continue on this path that ultimately brings you to the best version of you. I always say, like, I am my best self today. I'm better than I was yesterday, and I look forward to tomorrow because I know I'll be an even, I think, better, but more truer version of myself. And I get there through all the ups and downs that happen once life throws at you. So, so that's my big thing. That's how I think about goal management. There are millions of articles about quick tips and how to best track certain things. So more on the execution side. Again, I'm the strategist, the 30,000 foot view gal in the room. So I like to think of it from what's going to inspire me to get up every day, to get through the things that are hard, to celebrate the things that are worth celebrating. And how do I bring my energy to wherever I'm going? That's how I think of goals. The best goals that I'll set for myself will allow me to flourish in those ways. And like the other speakers mentioned, the rest will come. So I will pause there.
Yeah, no, thank you, Nicole. Just kind of one last quick question is,
Yeah.
When you create goals, do you look forward or do you look backwards? Where are you kind of trying to stretch yourself from?
I think so. I'm a strategist, so I'm always looking at the future. I definitely learn, and I have spent a lot of time in the last few years, as Carrie knows. I work with Carrie very closely on this piece of my journey, but looking back to learn why I do things certain ways, how like limiting beliefs that I have, what could have led to those things. Like it's really important to look back to understand how you've come to be who you are today. But it's really important once you understand, and that's a learning process in and of itself. Once you get to that point, it's always about looking forward. Even if you've had a rough day or a rough year, I get inspired by looking forward and thinking about who me, Nicole, LePetri in 2021 will look like, what I will like tomorrow, and using that to get through days that are really difficult, and they can be difficult. And then not even there will be difficult days, and so using that image of who you think you could be at your best self, which is going to change as you again progress your career, your personal relationships, family, friends.
Yeah, that's great. It's kind of how you're saying the future is more inspirational than the past for you. So
yeah,
definitely. So thank you so much for sharing, Nicole. I'll open up the questions to the room. If anybody has a quick question, feel free to unmute yourself.
I'll ask a first question since I know this person. Nicole, what kind of advice would you give if you got in a situation where the choice you made for your first job out of college, you know, as intentional as you were, it got you in a situation where the environment, the job, the boss, the duties were absolutely just sucking the life out of you.
So Carrie asks,
and I love it. I can see Andy laughing here. I can see certain people who I know laughing. But like, what do you do with that? You know, like, and like, because it's your first job. It's like, where do you go? Because they'll always ask you, where's your experience? And you say, yeah. What would you give in that situation if you had any experience with that?
If I had any experience with that. So I think some of the hardest lessons so far have been what is not a good fit for me, like your fit with wherever you're working. So I think a big thing for me was distinguishing like who I am, what my skills are, the energy I like to bring, and just realizing when it's not a fit. Like if you get into like, when you, especially right out of school, like it's hard. Like, I mean, you've gone through school for a number of years and you think you know certain things about yourself. And then you come to learn that maybe there are other things you're good at. You just get more experiences. So I think if you're in a situation that you're not enjoying for whichever reason, and as Carrie mentioned, I experienced all of those things. And it's just realizing that it's to value yourself, know what you bring to the table, value your worth. And if a situation is not going as well as you thought it would or hoped it would, make a change. And you learn over time when that change needs to happen. In the beginning, it is tough to differentiate what's just a few bad weeks or a bad month or a bad project or a bad boss, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing at the end of the day is you have to believe in yourself, believe in your worth, and believe that there is a place where you can make a difference, even if it's not exactly that place right now. And when it comes time to make the change, you own your story. So when you go to that new career, even job, I've had a few roles now at Bank of America to really find my way through to find the strategy role that I think is a much better fit for me than some of the other roles. But once I got to this role, there could have been other stories that I could have shared about myself. But I shared the story that I wanted to share about me, that I thought was most authentic to me. And that is what connects with anyone who you're looking to like join like a new venture, a new team. So it's definitely believe in your value, own your story, and so not let anyone get in the way of that.
Right. So I'm going to ask one other question, and then Ben, I'm supporting you.
Yeah.
Tactics. What do you do when you get in a situation where you got to sit down with your boss? You're this young, this new, experienced but inexperienced, and you got to talk about my compensation is not where it needs to be. So what are the tactics and how you actually have that conversation, whether you get what you want or not? Like what do you do, and what courage do you use to have that conversation?
Absolutely. Again, not that I've had this conversation before, but no, it's a tough conversation, especially as Kara mentioned, when you're young, and there's no transparency into how any of these processes work. So I think the first best step is, of course, like before, believe in your worth. How do you know what you're worth other than saying, I believe in myself? You research. Like there are plenty of websites that will tell you the average or the market value of this type of role in this city with these number of years of experience. That gives you a starting point. Now in the role that you're doing, you could be doing more, or you could be delivering more value. So it's again the starting point. But it's an easy way to go into conversations with your ultimate manager and human resources to say, like, look, you're underpaying me by X. Here's the list of data points to say what the average or market. I think I'm X above market, of course. So I should be I expect this level of compensation, and to own it, because at the end of the day, no one's going to advocate for you. You have to advocate for yourself, and really believe in yourself. And at some point, if it ends up not being a conversation that is popular to have, or you aren't feeling like you're supported in the company, then it's time to look at other opportunities. And it goes back to the point of knowing at what point it's time to make a change that works in your favor. But again, at the end of the day, you're starting, like, it is such a learning curve. So I think also if there are teammates, associates, like people that are a few years above you that you trust, they can also provide that unofficial help as to how the company works, what the processes are, things to be aware of to just avoid any sort of intentional, unintentional traps.
Yeah. But the cool thing for you is, just to kind of fast forward for everyone, even though you got the company story, you're right, we should be paying you more, but we're not going to. Mm-hmm. You're right, your bonus is awful. It's a happy meal. More importantly, that raising your hand actually raised awareness.
Yes.
And it's what led to, management realizing this person's not in the right role. We're not paying them well. And if we're not smart and make an offer for something different, we're going to lose that person, which, again, I'm fast forwarding here a little bit, is how you ended up getting an offer to go work in a strategy team with a young boss who's just a couple years older than you, and you're having a completely different experience. So I just think that's remarkable for the rest of the group to think about. Using your voice is so powerful, even around compensation.
Definitely. And again, huge shout out to Carrie for, again, being, you need mentors to go through these sort of processes, especially in the beginning. So, and this will be a shout out to Apprentice Worldwide and all the work that everyone's doing here. This group of people can be your mentor, your ear. So when you have these conversations, as I did, and I thankfully had Carrie to talk to at that time, I felt much more confident and prepared going in. And preparation is like 50% of how you get to your feeling confident ahead of these, what can in the beginning feel like very uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah. So, Ben, I'm not sure if you want to ask any questions, or does the group want to step into anything she just shared?
I'll open it up to anybody if anybody wants, but if not, I'll just go ahead with the next activity. So
add a little bit, if you can hear me, about what you mentioned on negotiating your salary or negotiating anything. I'm big on career momentum, right? Momentum means continuously improving your career and your situation. So the same way that you have annual reviews that they do to you, you do to your company, right? And Carrie hit it in the nail. You don't have to ask necessarily for salary increase. You can ask for very many things, including education, additional training, support. If you're not in a role that allows you to travel, ask them to put you in those roles. So you have to ask all the time. Now, do not ask when your bosses are pissed off at you, right? There's a timing situation as well. Or if you're not producing, you're arriving late, right? That's not the time to be asking. You ask in the right time, in the right moment. And if you don't feel it's the right moment, if you want to know, then talk to any of us, right? To your mentors and evaluate, bounce ideas so that you don't screw up that opportunity. But yeah, I think annually you should evaluate your situation as well, because you are in charge of your career. That's the biggest mistake people think. That the big institution, I work at Bank of America 8 years, and the people were like, oh no, I've never gotten promoted. Yeah, well, but 20 others have, because you haven't asked, right? Yeah. So again, good job.
If I could just add, this is Beatrice here. I've known Carrie for 3 years, I want to say. Is that right? It feels like a lifetime because I feel like we're energetically connected. And I knew Hernan, I want to say like 10 years ago when we both worked at Wells Fargo. If it was it First Union or Wells Fargo at the time? No, it was Wachovia. I lie. It was Wachovia Trust. Just on the point that I'm hearing the word ask when you pitch this kind of stuff, and I guess I would just complement that with being creative and offering ideas. If something's on the table to ask for that entices you, well then great. That means it's ripe for the picking. But sometimes if you get into kind of self-awareness, what makes you tick, you could probably come to the table and say, I realize that this team, that group of people, this project, insert word you want, has a problem, and I have the skill set to help. And I think that I could add value by doing or playing this role within the organization, this role within the group, this role within the initiative, insert whatever, so that it's also up to you to put new things on the table that might not actually be there. And I will say that gives that I think highlights Nicole's point, right? Like, I am valued here. I am valuable, and I think outside the box. And not only am I just sitting back looking at what's available, but I'm also being creative about applying my skill set into an environment that makes sense. And it's like, oh my gosh, yes, we had a problem. We didn't even know what the solution was. And well, look at Nicole. She just come up and said she found a solution to help us in the grander scheme. So one, I think, is great to ask when there's something on the table. I think there's another one to pitch an idea for a problem that somebody is feeling, sensing, living, and you can be the conduit for a solution. So be creative and pitch an idea, not just ask for what's there.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So you won't know until you ask or have the discussion at the end of the day. And sometimes the discussions need to happen several times across several people because everyone has their own things. Everyone is focused on different things. So the persistence, like having grit, is so important on top of just performing in the role itself.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing, guys. So the next thing we have on the agenda, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it.